I took a moment to pause, casually leaning against the stone tile column, observing the holiday crowd with great care to avoid standing out. As clueless shoppers passed by, engrossed in their purchases, coffee drinks, and constant text messages, I felt the reassuring presence of my concealed sidearm against my ribs. This familiar weight had been my constant companion since my time in Dubai, where I had to depend on my wits and hand-to-hand combat skills. The intense high-stakes and hyper-security nature of the job had sharpened my situational awareness to a fine point. Moving another 6 feet, I finally found a seat at one of the tables in the mall food court. I pulled a half-empty soda cup in front of me to give myself a reason to be there, other than needing a quiet place to process the new information I had just received. Despite the cold fury surging through me, I managed to maintain a composed exterior thanks to years of training. Everything had gone awry, but I had managed to leave before things escalated further. At least one person was definitely dead, with a possibility of two. My wife Veronica and her colleague Jonathan Blackwell, also known as the notorious arms dealer the Phantom. Just the mention of their names made me clench my jaw. Someone seemed to have overlooked my extensive experience as a former Navy SEAL before transitioning into the cybersecurity field. I had left behind a trail of enemies in my career, and now it seemed that 2 more might need to be added to that list. If they were indeed targeting me, their approach had been careless. In my experience, arms dealers and their associates typically did not resort to shooting without first identifying themselves, especially not when dealing with a former Navy SEAL turned cybersecurity expert. I retrieved the basic, pay-as-you-go cell phone that I had hastily purchased from a kiosk. I had my doubts that the salesperson truly believed my story about a bank-related computer crash, but a $200 cash payment secured me an anonymous phone and 3 hours of usage. He likely reported the transaction upwards in his chain of command, but I couldn't blame him. Under the circumstances, something didn't feel right, and I hesitated to involve a newcomer from the Middle East in any suspicious activity. I decided to let him make the call. The 3 hours of talk time I had purchased seemed excessive for this situation. After retrieving a business card from my wallet, I dialed the number and a brisk woman's voice answered. 2 executive services. Trying to stay composed, I explained, I need help. My wife is threatening me. The call abruptly ended. Feeling defeated, I murmured, Dan, I don't know what to do next. It seemed like this might be the end of the line, and I contemplated handling the situation on my own. Just then, my phone vibrated with a text message from an unfamiliar number containing only a link. Curious and with little to lose, I clicked on it and my phone began downloading an app. As the icon appeared on my screen, depicting a stylized symbol, I couldn't help but wonder where this unexpected turn would lead me. I activated EdK2 and accidentally called K2 Executive Services. The voice on the other end sounded strange and muffled, as if underwater. I was instructed to hold my phone at arm's length, and it took my picture. The image flashed on the screen, revealing my gray complexion, which reflected the shock and anger I was feeling. The woman then asked for my name, Dominic Thorne, and there was a brief pause as she seemed to be checking something, possibly my credit score. I informed her that I was armed, uninjured, but required immediate assistance due to my wife's involvement with arms dealer Jonathan Blackwell and their illegal activities. She put me on hold with hold music playing in the background. It was odd to hear music while waiting in such a serious situation. Red, initially stunned by the call, regained composure as the voice on the other end interrupted. Thank you for your patience. We have an available asset in your vicinity. Head to the south entrance of the mall and wait near the men's restroom. The contractor will arrive within 30 minutes. Feeling the pressure of time ticking away, Rhett responded, I might not have 30 minutes. They could be closing in as we speak. The voice assured the contractor will organize immediate extraction. Do you require medical assistance? Red replied confidently, Negative, I'm combat ready, before the call abruptly ended. Pushing off the table, Red adjusted their pace, blending in with the bustling holiday shoppers. Despite the quarter-mile walk to the south entrance through the mall, there was no sign of pursuers yet. Progressing past clothing stores, shoe outlets, and eateries, Red cautiously made their way through the crowds, watching for any suspicious activity. Nearly reaching the south entrance after about 20 minutes, the sign for. I felt a tight grip on my right elbow as I made my way towards the restroom, filled with anticipation. A couple, likely parents with their children, walked past me in bulky bright coats, using the promise of hot chocolate to keep their kids in line. "Keep moving, Mr. Thorne," a voice with a slight Eastern European, possibly Russian accent urged me on. I glanced over and saw a man in a sharp black suit and overcoat. Despite the accent, he didn't seem like one of Blackwell's henchmen. He subtly revealed a subcompact automatic concealed in his coat, a reminder of our encounter during the ambush at my house. "It's Dominic," he said calmly. "Let's keep moving. I'd prefer not to have a scene in front of these children, but I will if necessary." He fell silent as we passed a teenage girl engrossed in her phone, completely unaware of our exchange. "You caught up faster than I expected," he remarked, mentioning facial recognition software or EPHRISE. The RAMs and the security software that controls the cameras on the bridge had been placed in that area months ago for a different operation. It was pure coincidence that it was still there, and I just happened to be heading in that direction when I found your vehicle in the parking lot. As I observed another family struggle past, with two children who looked exhausted from their journey just past the toddler stage, I realized that there were too many innocent bystanders around for me to take action, even if I had been in better physical condition and armed. It was fortunate for me. He gestured nonchalantly, showing an unexpected level of politeness for someone who was hired to do a job. I was too cautious to make a move at that moment. He led me into the utility hallway across from the bathroom, and we walked down it until we came to a corner. Time was running out. He swiftly turned me around the corner, pulling out his gun. A heavy, dull sound reverberated through the tiled corridor. He lurched forward before collapsing in a heap after taking a single unsteady step. Standing behind him was the young woman wearing a light purple crew cap, brandishing an oversized crescent wrench in a somewhat comical manner. With another swing and an expressionless face, she glanced at me before looking down at him. Balancing the wrench effortlessly on her thin shoulder, she crouched down to check his breathing and pupil dilation in a mechanical manner. Then she picked up the gun, cleared it with a practiced ease, and slid it, along with her wrench, into her backpack. She casually took his wallet from his coat and placed it in a silvery envelope. Without hesitation, she removed the battery from his cell phone and tossed it into a nearby trash can, adding the phone to the envelope. Standing up, she extended her hand with a stoic expression. "Come with me if you want to live," she said, holding my gaze until a smirk crept across her face, her eyes gleaming. "Dan, I've always wanted to say that. Now let's assess the damage. Any injuries?" I replied, my voice unwavering and cold. "No injuries, just a burning desire for payback." She retrieved a small first aid kit from her backpack. "Good, we may need you at full capacity for your K2 contact. Call me Delaney." "Pleasure," I responded. "Now can we proceed?" "We need to leave before more of Blackwell's associates appear," she said with a nod, a grim smile tugging at the corners of her lips. "But we won't just run. We're going to fight back." As we hurried out of the mall, I briefed Dylan on my situation. The betrayal by Veronica, the selling of classified information to Blackwell, and the attempt on my life. Dell's eyes grew cold with anger with each new revelation, mirroring my own emotions. "What's the plan?" she asked as we arrived at the inconspicuous set-in in the parking garage. I settled into the passenger seat, my mind already racing with strategies. "First, we must secure any remaining evidence. I have a secret office at home with all the data I've gathered on their activities. Then we strike back. No mercy, no forgiveness," I explained. Dylan's grin turned predatory as she started the car. "I admire your resolve, Dominic. Let's make these enemies regret ever crossing you," she said with determination. As we drove out of the parking garage, a chilling sense of purpose filled me. A sense of purpose enveloped me completely. Veronica and Blackwell had made a significant error in underestimating me. They were about to face the consequences, and I was determined to ensure that my brand of justice prevailed. The drive to my residence was filled with tension, with every shadow appearing as a potential threat. Delaney expertly navigated the roads, her sharp awareness honed by years of clandestine operations. As we turned onto my street, I noticed the elegant Aston Martin still stationed in the driveway. "Nice car," I commented, the sarcasm evident in my voice. Delaney's gaze sharpened. "A gift from a friend, I presume?" I nodded, my jaw tightening. "Veronica's latest acquisition from Blackwell. Seems he enjoys keeping his associates' content." Parking a block away, we proceeded on foot, using the darkness and neighboring properties to disguise our approach. As we neared the house, I could see Veronica pacing anxiously in the living room, clutching her phone to her ear. "Looks like someone's growing uneasy," Delaney whispered. "What's our next move?" I pondered the various strategies available to us. We need that evidence temporarily. "I will create a distraction to lure her out so you can enter my office and secure the data." The office is concealed behind a hidden panel in the study, on the third bookshelf to the left. The trigger to access it is War and Peace. Delaney nodded solemnly. "If she obstructs us, do whatever is necessary, but ensure she remains alive. I want answers before this concludes." Delaney silently acknowledged, blending into the shadows and circling around to the rear of the house. I took a deep breath, preparing myself for the impending confrontation. With purposeful steps, I walked up to the front door and pressed the doorbell. Veronica opened the door with a look of disbelief on her face. "Veronica, how?" I entered the house, alert for any immediate threats. "Surprised to see me, Veronica? I am sorry to disappoint you." Her shock turned swiftly into a mask of worry. "Dominic, thank goodness you were safe. I was so anxious when I heard about the attack." I interrupted her with a cold tone in my voice. I confronted Veronica about her involvement in selling classified intel from Blackwell. Her composure shattered as she attempted to explain, but I wasn't swayed. Mocking her connection with the arms dealer Jonathan, I highlighted the repercussions of her betrayal. As she nervously searched for a way out, I warned her of the danger she was in, but I stood firm, ready to face any threat. Just as Veronica mentioned Jonathan's resources, a noise interrupted us, prompting her to question who else was present. I assured her it didn't matter, making it clear that she wouldn't be leaving Veronica. "It's time to face the consequences of your actions." Just then, Delaney, holding a small hard drive, appeared at the top of the stairs as if right on cue. Veronica's eyes widened in recognition. You're the girl from the mall. Who are you? What are you doing in my house?" Delaney ignored her, turning to me instead. "The perimeter is still clear, but we shouldn't push our luck. What should we do with her?" She gestured towards Veronica. After a brief pause, I made my decision. "She's coming with us. Blackwell will be searching for her, and I need to know everything she knows." Veronica pleaded, her voice trembling. "Dominic, please. You don't understand what you're getting into. Jonathan will harm us all." I firmly held her arm, replying, "You can try. But first, you're going to give us every detail, every contact, every little secret. And beware if I suspect you're lying." As we escorted Veronica to the car, the harsh reality of her situation seemed to settle in. The woman I once loved, the life we once shared, was a facade concealing the truth. Despite any lingering emotions, I set aside my sentimental thoughts. Remorse could wait for another day. My priority was to accomplish my mission and settle the score at hand. Delaney assumed control of the wheel, expertly guiding us through the tranquil suburban streets. Veronica remained in the back seat, her countenance a mix of fear and resignation. Keeping a vigilant eye on the rearview mirror for any signs of pursuit, I concentrated on the road ahead. "Where are we headed?" Veronica's voice finally broke the silence, barely audible. "To a safe place," I responded without turning to face her. "Somewhere beyond Blackwell's reach until we are prepared." As we left the city lights behind, a sense of grim contentment settled over me. The dynamics had shifted, and I now dictated the course of action. Veronica and Blackwell were clueless about the impending events, and I intended to maintain this advantage until it was too late for them to react. The road ahead of us stretched on, cloaked in darkness and laden with opportunities. Ready for whatever lay ahead, I felt a surge of determination. They had attempted to deceive us, but now the tables had turned to dismantle me, to dismantle everything I had carefully built. Now it was my moment, and I would show no mercy. Leaning against the wall of the safe house, my gaze locked on Veronica as she paced back and forth in the confined space like a trapped animal. The last 24 hours had been a maelstrom of betrayal, violence, and strategic planning. In the harsh light of morning, I could see the visible effects it had on her. Let her experience just a fraction of the anguish she had caused. "You won't hold me captive forever, Dominic," she spat, her tone now laced with venom instead of the earlier plea for understanding. Ignoring her outburst, I shifted my focus to the array of security monitors I had meticulously arranged. The safe house stood as a formidable fortress, with every possible entry point fortified by layers of security. If Blackwell's henchmen happened to track us down, they would face a formidable challenge. Dell's voice crackled through the communication device. "Perimeter is clear. No signs of any activity within a 5-mile radius." "Acknowledged," I replied calmly. "Stay vigilant, our enemies are cunning." I could sense Veronica's. Wede's intense gaze finally met mine. The hatred in her eyes was unmistakable. "You have no idea what you're stepping into, Dominic," she warned. "Jonathan will track us down, and when he does, he'll regret ever crossing paths with Dom and Thorne." I interjected, my voice chillingly calm. "Your partner made a grave error using my wife against me. And you, well, you're even more foolish for going along with it." Veronica's face twisted with anger as she retorted, "You're so arrogant. Always playing the hero, the flawless soldier. Did it ever occur to you that I wanted more than just being a trophy wife, to someone more devoted to their work than our marriage?" Despite feeling a spark of anger, I quelled it. "So you chose to betray your country for someone who thrives on death and suffering. Was it worth it, Veronica? Was the money and excitement worth sacrificing everything we had built together?" In that moment, a fissure appeared in her facade of renovation. A moment of hesitation flashed in her eyes, swiftly replaced by a steely determination. "You're missing the point, Dominic. Jonathan's offer promised more than just a superficial role in your schemes and the data we've been trafficking. It held the promise of real influence, a chance to enact change on a grand scale." I let out a chuckle at her naivety. "Sure, it would have made a difference, arming dangerous individuals, causing more harm to the innocent. You're mistaken if you think Blackwell has any altruistic motives." Before Veronica could retaliate, my phone vibrated. A message from an unfamiliar sender, but the encryption gave away my contact within the task force. "We have Blackwell's island location. Big arms deal in 48 hours. Excitement surged through me. This was the moment to bring down Blackwell and his entire network. I turned to Veronica, a cold grin creeping across my face. "Looks like..." As her partner's luck seemed to be fading, fear flashed in her widened eyes. "Dominic, please reconsider. We can find a solution. I'll share everything I know with you. Just spare Jonathan," I urged, moving closer with a low, menacing tone. "No, Veronica. He will try and he will fail. You both will end up behind bars for life when all is said and done," I asserted, turning away, mentally preparing for the upcoming mission. Veronica's pleas faded into the background as I focused on the imminent task. There was no room for mercy, no space for doubt. It was imperative to dismantle Blackwell and his operation, and I was determined to see it through. The passage of time blurred as we made final preparations. Weapons were meticulously inspected. Intelligence was reviewed, and every aspect of Blackwell's compound was committed to memory. The task force was ready, comprising skilled operatives across different agencies, all driven by the shared goal of taking down one of the world's most infamous arms dealers. As night descended, the commencement of the operation drew closer. He gave the safe house security one last check before preparing to leave. Veronica sat in silent defeat, no fight left in her. Looking at her, I felt no emotion. The woman I once cared for was now just a stranger, a traitor who needed to be dealt with. "I'm leaving," I stated flatly, devoid of any feeling in my voice. Once this is over, the authorities will come for you. Start thinking about how to salvage what remains of your life. Her eyes met mine, tired and empty. Dominic, I'm sorry for everything. I didn't look back as I headed towards the door. Save your apologies for the judge, Veronica. They mean nothing to me. With that, I stepped outside into the night, leaving behind the wreckage of my past and embracing the mission ahead with unwavering determination. Our journey to Blackwell's Island was marked by stealth and precision. In the darkness, our team neared a specially modified submersible, its engines cutting through the quiet waters without a sound. The weight of my tactical gear was a familiar reassurance, each piece a reminder of the task at hand. Equipped with a reliable piece of gear, a crucial asset, we prepared for a challenging confrontation. As we approached the shore, I gestured for the team to surface one by one. Emerging from the water like phantoms, our black wetsuits seamlessly merged with the night. The island loomed ahead, a silhouette set against the starry sky. Alpha Team, report in, I quietly spoke into my communication device. 4 clicks responded, representing each member of the assault squad. All were in position and ready to proceed. Bravo Team, what's your status? I asked. In position and prepared to provide overwatch, came the subdued response. Our sharpshooters had already taken their places, their high-caliber rifles aimed at critical points near the compound. Taking a moment to compose myself, I steeled my resolve for what lay ahead. This mission wasn't just about defeating Blackwell or seeking retribution for my own betrayal. It was about halting a man responsible for immense suffering and profiting from chaos and death. And I was determined to see it through, regardless of the sacrifices required. Remember, our target is Blackwell, I stated in a calm, firm tone. It was unanimously agreed that no one other than him should be kept alive if possible, with a chorus of affirmatives following. I nodded in satisfaction. The individuals I was working with were seasoned professionals, the top tier in their field. They were well aware of the risks involved. All right, let's proceed, I instructed. We maneuvered through the thick jungle surrounding the compound, moving with quiet precision. Decades of rigorous training guided us, our senses attuned to any potential threats. The only disruptions to the eerie silence were occasional nocturnal bird calls and the rustling of leaves in the breeze. As we approached the perimeter, I signaled the team to stop by raising a clenched fist. The first obstacle in our path was a high wall bristling with razor wire, guarded by armed sentries. I tapped my communication device twice, signaling Bravo Team to eliminate the guards. 2 barely audible shots rang out, so subtle that they could have been mistaken for branches snapping. The guards fell without a sound, their comrades swiftly retrieving their bodies and lowering them to the ground before any sound could be made. A whisper came through the calm. We advanced, effortlessly scaling the wall. Upon reaching the other side, we divided into pairs, each heading towards a designated entrance point. Walking alongside me was my partner, Martinez, a skilled former Delta Force operator. Approaching the side entrance to the main building, Martinez effortlessly unlocked the door with his electronic bypass tool. The cool air inside was a welcome relief from the humid night air outside. Gesturing for Martinez to take the lead, I covered our movement as we delved further into the compound. The information we had received was accurate, and we navigated the labyrinthine corridors with certainty. As we closed in on the central area where Blackwell was expected to be, we heard voices speaking different languages, and the clinking of glasses. The arms deal was underway. I signaled for everyone to converge and prepare to breach in a moment. I sensed and saw the rest of the team taking up positions around the room. We were in place, ready to spring the trap on my mark. I whispered 3, 2, 1, execute. The world exploded into chaos. Flashbangs detonated, filling the room with blinding light and deafening noise. We burst in, weapons at the ready, shouting commands in multiple languages. FBI on the ground now. Ender pool, hands where we can see them. Most of the arms buyers dropped immediately, stunned by the sudden assault. A few tried to resist, reaching for weapons, but were quickly subdued. In the midst of it all, I searched for one face, Jonathan Blackwell. I spotted him near the back of the room, trying to slip away in confusion. "Not this time, you scoundrel." I charged forward, dodging panicked arms dealers and flying furniture. Blackwell saw me coming, his eyes widened in recognition and fear. He turned to run, but I was faster. I tackled him hard, driving him to the ground with all my weight behind it. He struggled, landing a solid elbow to my. Despite having IBS, I hardly noticed the discomfort amidst the surge of adrenaline pulsing through me. I cornered Blackwell, pressing him face down onto the cold marble floor. "It's over, Blackwell," I growled. His defiant struggles and multilingual curses only fueled my resolve. I restrained him, perhaps with more force than necessary, and secured him with reinforced cuffs. With a menacing whisper, I warned him about the consequences of targeting my family. His fearful eyes revealed his realization of the grave mistake he had made. He had underestimated me and now faced the consequences. Handing him over to Martinez, I turned my attention to the rest of the team, who were securing other arms dealers and collecting evidence. It was a successful operation. As the adrenaline rush faded, I reflected on the years of dedication and months of meticulous planning that had led to this moment, a moment of intense personal turmoil. Everything had reached its peak. Blackwell's empire lay in ruins, his accomplices detained, and a wealth of valuable information on global arms trafficking now in our possession. Despite the situation, I did not feel a rush of joy or victory. Instead, a somber contentment washed over me as I recognized that justice had prevailed and a significant threat had been neutralized. There would be time for introspection later. For now, there were still tasks ahead. I spotted my commanding officer, initiating communication with Task Force Headquarters. "This is Alpha 1. Target secured. Blackwell apprehended. Mission accomplished." The swift response came, "Copy, Alpha 1. Well done. Extraction team en route. Secure the area and prepare for debriefing." I complied with the instructions and refocused on the ongoing operations. The night was far from finished, but the most challenging part was behind us. Blackwell's reign had come to an end, and soon Veronica would face her own consequences. While overseeing the gathering of evidence and processing of detainees, a faint, calculated smile crept across my face. They had attempted to defy justice, but ultimately failed to destroy me, to exploit me for their own ends. Instead, they had only sealed their own fates. Let them languish in prison, I mused. Let them wrestle with the truth that they had brought this upon themselves. For my part, I had a mission to complete and a life to rebuild, and I would do so without a hint of regret for the decisions I had made. The extraction proceeded smoothly. Our team and the captives were loaded onto waiting helicopters as the first light of dawn crept across the sky. As we ascended, I observed Blackwell's island compound growing distant, knowing that soon it would teem with forensic teams and intelligence analysts, scoring every piece of information we had seized. The return flight to the mainland was a blur of exhaustion and the crash of post-mission adrenaline. I managed to snatch a few moments of fitful sleep, my mind still racing with the recent events. Upon our arrival at a secure military installation, I was vigilant and prepared for the next steps. Blackwell was swiftly taken into custody as you entered. All eyes turned in your direction. I noticed expressions of respect and even a hint of awe on some faces. It was satisfying to let them witness the consequences of crossing the wrong person. Thorne, the lead agent, a seasoned veteran named Harding, greeted you with a nod. "Hell of a job out there. Initial reports suggest we've gathered enough evidence to put Blackwell away for multiple lifetimes, along with his accomplices," he remarked. A small, grim smile appeared on your face. "Good. And what about Veronica? Any updates on the situation stateside?" you inquired. Harding's expression turned solemn. "We have a team headed to the safe house. She'll be in custody within the hour," he informed you. You nodded, a cold sense of satisfaction enveloping you. "I want to witness her being brought in," you stated firmly. Harding looked as if he was on the verge of saying something more before you anticipated his next wordsy object. However, something in my demeanor seemed to have changed his decision. "All right, but you are to remain uninvolved," he instructed. Acknowledging that I had played my part, he advised me to let the system take care of the rest. I chose to remain silent, as we both were aware of the system's vulnerabilities, often being influenced by wealth and connections. Nevertheless, I had no plans to take matters into my own hands. I was determined to ensure that Veronica faced consequence one way or another. The journey to the safe house felt endless. Upon arrival, I noticed that local law enforcement and FBI agents had already secured the premises. Stepping out of the SUV, my body weary from the night's events, but my mind alert and focused. Making my way towards the house, the front door swung open, revealing two agents escorting Veronica out, her hands restrained behind her back. She appeared diminished, no longer the confident woman I had once known. Upon spotting me, a mix of fear and resignation flickered in her eyes. I stood a few feet away, my expression unreadable. "It's over, Veronica." Blackwell's entire operation had been dismantled while in custody, she revealed. For a long moment, she just stared at me with hollow eyes before speaking in a barely audible voice. "What happens now?" Her question triggered a surge of cold anger within me. "Now you face the consequences of your actions. Treason, espionage, conspiracy." "I hope it was worth it," I replied firmly. Veronica's shoulders sagged, but before she could speak, I interrupted. "I don't want to hear your excuses or apologies. You made your choice. Now live with it." Unable to sustain eye contact any longer, I turned away as the agents escorted her to a waiting car. Despite her plea for forgiveness, I remained resolute, knowing her words meant nothing to me at that moment. The woman I once loved, the life we had built together, all turned to ashes by her greed and betrayal. As the car drove away, a weight lifted off my shoulders. Trials, debriefings, and paperwork awaited, but the worst was behind me. I had survived. Having successfully turned the tables on those who had wronged me, I had successfully defeated the one who tried to destroy me while staying true to myself. Harding approached, showing a hint of respect on his weathered face. "You did well, Thorne. Not many could have accomplished that," he acknowledged. I acknowledged the praise and asked, "What's the next step?" Harding raised an eyebrow and replied, "Next, you have a pile of paperwork to tackle. After that, I recommend taking a long vacation. You deserve it." I declined the vacation offer, expressing my eagerness to return to work. Harding observed me for a moment before agreeing to see what he could arrange. He advised me to take time to digest everything that had happened, acknowledging the challenges I had faced. As he walked away, I stood beneath the rising sun, reflecting on the situation. There was nothing left to analyze. I had acted as needed, nothing more, nothing less. Veronica and Blackwell had made their decisions and would confront the consequences. Personally, I was ready for whatever the future held. Though the betrayal was painful, it had also liberated me. No more conflicting loyalties, no more secrets, more hidden truths were consuming me. I had been molded into a weapon, sharpened and poised, awaiting the next target. The subsequent weeks were a whirlwind of debriefings, legal proceedings, and countless consultations with attorneys. I diligently presented all the evidence I had collected against Veronica, guaranteeing that she would face the consequences of her actions. The divorce process unfolded swiftly and mercilessly, ensuring she would not receive any of our joint assets. Throughout it all, I maintained my focus and drive, leaving no room for uncertainty or remorse. Both Veronica and Blackwell had made their decisions, and now they were grappling with the fallout. I, on the other hand, was already looking to the future, eager for the next challenge. As time went by, the chaos gradually subsided. I found myself in a new apartment in Rome, the Eternal City, a fitting setting for this fresh chapter in my life. The experiences of the previous year had transformed and toughened me in ways I was still discovering, yet I had also discovered a peculiar sense of peace. It was a tranquil evening when my phone rang. Bang, the secure line I kept for official business. I answered without hesitation. "Thorne?" The voice on the other end was familiar. My handler from the agency. "We've got a situation brewing in Buenos Aires. Need someone with your particular skill set. You interested? I felt a surge of anticipation, the familiar thrill of a new mission. Details classified, need to know basis only, but I can tell you it's big, potentially bigger than Blackwell. I didn't hesitate. I'm in. When do I leave? Wheels up in 6 hours. I'll send a car. As I packed my go bag, I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror. The man staring back at me was different from the one who had stumbled upon his wife's betrayal all those months ago. Harder, colder perhaps, but also more focused, more certain of his place in the world. I was no longer weighed down by secrets and divided loyalties. The betrayal had cut deep, but it had also set me free. Now I was living as my true self. A warrior, a protector, a force to be reckoned with. As I boarded the plane to Buenos Aires, a sense of eager anticipation filled me. I was prepared to confront any obstacles that came my way with determination. The trials of my past had shaped me, and I was now focused on the vast array of opportunities and purpose that lay ahead. As the aircraft accelerated down the runway and lifted off into the sky, I relaxed in my seat, a subtle yet confident smile forming on my lips. The next chapter of my journey had begun, and I was fully committed to playing the game strategically. The hurts of Veronica's betrayal and Jonathan's betrayal were now in the past, with my victory secured. The future appeared bright and promising. Thank you to all who have tuned in to today's stories. If you enjoyed them, please consider liking and subscribing if you haven't already. Feel free to share your thoughts on the events in the comments below. Take care.